Happy Friday from Recoup. Today is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. I'm Sweets. This is Sid. This is our Friday weekly call where we recap what was shipped in this past week. We talked about a lot of it off stream. So the main thing I'm interested in reviewing is the evals to see how those went, because those were what I set up before I left. And I want to just check over. I left pretty much all week. How stable have the evals been as Sid and Veerball have been shipping throughout this week? Are there any places you'd like to start before we go and check out the evals?
No, let's start there. I like evals.
We're skipping the normal check-in of how are you feeling and what do you feel? What do you need? Because we don't have a ton of time. We're going to Brain Trust, not Base Scan, Brain Trust. Ideally, nothing has changed. I don't think anybody's shipped any LLM changes. So with only UI components being shipped, have our numbers been stable or have they been going all over the place? So in Brain Trust, we go to the Experiments tab. We select an eval. Catalog Opportunity is the brand new one that I've put in. It has been relatively stable between 17% and 0%. I have not shipped any code to improve this yet. So this is just putting in the eval before I write any code to fix it, right around 0%, which in my opinion is expected. First week album sales. This one started off, this was from customer feedback of they would ask, what were the album sales on this album? And before it was fluctuating a ton. On Monday, I shipped some stuff to get us more stability, where we stayed right around 60%. And so now instead of on a low end of 15% and a high end of 90%, we're now sticking in a much closer range. On the low side, 45%, on the high side, 60%. And that's been all week. So we're now fluctuating between a 15% change. And this is factuality, so it's grading very highly. On our lower ends, let's see what scored low. We had one that was 0, Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny. And in this one, what are the first week streaming numbers for Bad Bunny? It opened with 618 million streams first week. On Spotify, it gave 618 million. It also moved 274,000 albums. We expect 335 million on-demand streams. So the number's just different here. We said 618. Our hard-coded expected is 355. So those numbers are different. Factuality is going to grade that as a 0, likely because the numbers are just different. The expert answer states this. The reasoning, the submitted answer provides a different streaming number, which conflicts with the experts. Therefore, there's a disagreement. The answer is incorrect. So it rated it as a 0 because those two numbers were different, which makes sense. I'm fine with this. I think it's still stable enough. What I would do, what I've been doing here to get it more stable is making our expected answer more broad. So in this case, I would say instead of saying Bad Bunny's album is specifically this number, I would say it is more than 300 million. That way, if it tells us 355 million, that's correct. If it tells us 600 million, it's correct. The main eval that we were writing for this was someone asked, what was the opening streams? And the response was, I don't know. And even when we're getting a 0%, it's not saying I don't know, it's giving us an answer. But if we want to get that precise number, what I need to know is what is the specific source that our enterprise clients using to determine success. That way I can get the exact number from that source and use that in our expected. And then every time we ask, it should be using that source. But until we know that answer, I think these are good where they are at. Any feedback on this one, Sid, before I keep going?
I really like it. I think it's a good start. I think we're learning and getting better with evals as we go. And I think that we just need to remember, and I love what you said about this one is being graded on factuality. And so as we progress and we start to try to get more factuality, then either manually remembering to update the albums because it might have changed over the last month with more album sales, or changing the eval type, or figuring out how to make our eval dynamic in a sense where if it's Bad Bunny and we swap these to the search API, can we figure out how to make it a dynamic thing? I don't know, but I agree with what you're saying. Just I think You have to remember. I guess that's what I'm saying it out loud, so I remember to remind myself in a month from now when we go back to this that like this is based on factuality. And did we ever update the initial uh, uh, eval text?
I agree with you 100%. Depending on our input prompt, the output might change. In this case, we are specifically checking first week, which will not change over time. So
Great.
Halsey's how many albums in the first week, Bad Bunny in the first week, those numbers will not change as long as we're doing this after the first week. I agree with you. In other cases, it might change.
Cool. All right, that's a good place there. So factuality on this makes sense because it's first week. It's not going to change.
Correct. Okay, monthly listeners, this one has been stable, continues to be stable. No change here.
I'm sorry. Let me back up before you continue. On the other one, now that we've so objective number 1, get stability.
Yep.
Whether it's 0 or 100 or 50%, like the closer we can get to stability is good, right? So then step 2 is increase the amount of correctness, right? Once stability is achieved. So I think like we've gotten to the place where this is a lot more stable. And now the question becomes, what can we do in the product to increase these evals from 60% to 70 to 80 to 90?
Yep.
Cool. Got it. And then from your perspective, from an engineer, this just gives you a much clearer path of, I come in here, I look at this, and then I can start to make decisions and think through most important questions and make my own choices of what I need to experiment with to make this improve this.
Yep, precisely.
Perfect. And that's evals, everyone.
On to the next one.
Yep.
Search web tool. This one is a new one as we're about to start changing our web search tool. It has been stable on the low end, 24, on the high end, 47. So 25-point swing. And this looks stable to me. Do you have any feedback on that? Stable.
Agreed.
Yeah, we started it on the 29th. So this was on Monday. Every single time a code change has been made, it's stayed relatively stable. And the last one, Spotify followers, this one has also been stable. It's been on a longer time horizon. We started this one 2 weeks ago, so on the 25th.
Ooh.
This was me shipping I made some changes, and I was running the evals locally, and my changes drastically dropped it, and so I did not implement those changes. And so this is an example of me making a change, seeing this is on Sweetman-Tech, so this is not on Head. Head is when it's run on a deployed version. Sweetman-Tech is when it's running locally. So on my local, I dropped it. I did not deploy those changes. When I ended up deploying it, I got stability. I got back to where we were on my local branch, and then I pushed up the change. We did have a drop in here on one of these. This is on a Head on a day that I believe I was gone. And why was this not correct? Output, metadata. Julius Black has that. Spotify doesn't show a clear single figure follower. It looks like in this case, we grabbed a different artist. I also had a question on which Julius Black we're using, because when I search Spotify for Julius Black, I'm getting nobody that jumps out as like, this is the obvious Julius Black. And so depending on the Julius Black it picks, it's going to get different numbers. So Julius Black, I'd love to know which Julius Black we're judging against. Wiz Khalifa should be pretty obvious who we're judging against. Answer correctness. And expected was 12 million followers. And then the output was 6.1 million followers. So this was just incorrect.
Which begs the question, why? Was it, did it not call the Spotify tool?
Wiz Khalifa, this one is an eval where I would love to see what tools it called. I would guess that in this case it called the web search tool instead of the Spotify tool, because if we called the Spotify tool, it should have given us a precise and accurate answer. If it called web, that would be why I would guess it would do a decrease. So this is an example of, in general, it's been flat. On occasion, it has an outlier. And so is this outlier enough for us to change something to get us back to that stability? Or are we fine with 1 point out of 30 points being weird? this is a great example of an eval showing us where for a while we had stability. Every once in a blue moon, it's going out. And so this is one where we could potentially make some improvements to make sure that it's always, my hypothesis here is it's calling a different tool. So how could we improve this? How can I know what tools are being called in this specific eval so that I know, so that I can have greater confidence on why the drop happened on this specific eval. Right now, we're not tracking what tools are called. What specific action I would love to take on this specific eval is track what tools were called and judge success on whether, in this case, we want our Spotify tool set to be called. That way we can have those two lines. Is the Spotify tool called? Is the answer accurate? Right now, we're just checking, is the answer correct? If we also know if the Spotify tool was called, we can line up better. Okay, this dropped and the Spotify tool isn't called, or if the Spotify tool was called here and it wasn't correct, that is not my hypothesis, and that's going to create a totally different direction that we're going to build down.
Yeah,
Those
and this is such an interesting topic around the article I sent you and what we've been going back and forth on Slack, which is how do we organize our tool and model calls, and is it organizing, because in this scenario, is it organizing by a Spotify grouping, or is it better to organize by like an API grouping so it knows this is where the like you can get the actual data? I don't know. Again, just talking through like how are we grouping our our tools so that it's best explained to the model, dependent on the query, how you should be thinking through finding this information.
I agree. And to just talk that out, 3-tiered hierarchical approaches. One, have it pick a category based off of the question, then show it the tools that are in that specific category. And then third, give it a tool in its schema. So 3 components, give it a list of categories. In this case, Spotify I think would be the category. Then, hey, here's all the tools that you have related to Spotify. Once you pick that tool, here's your tool, get your input parameters and call the tool. How we can implement this specifically within the AI SDK that we're using is they have this new agents framework in AI SDK v5, and they have a routing pattern. And so their routing pattern would be when someone sends a query, the first thing we do is we say, hey, here's our categories. Pick which category you're going to pick. Okay, you picked this category. And then we give it, instead of system prompt here, our tools, give it a grouping of tools. If you called Spotify, here's the Spotify tools. If you picked web search, here's your web search tools. If you picked YouTube, here's your YouTube tools, et cetera. And we give a much more refined tool set. That way there's greater confidence in the answer. I agree. This was a great article that you sent, Sid. We have not done any of these agent SDKs from the AI SDK. And it's interesting to see overlap between, okay, this is what Vercel is shipping, and these are articles that other people in the industry are writing about. And in those articles, they are including things which Vercel has been writing, things that we have not built on yet. And so it's the sources you're sending have been excellent, Sid. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that just from moving our evals to brain trust and being able to start to do this more methodically is kind of unlocking the next layer of our architecture, right? And the decision-making of context engineering in general.
So going into next week, I think our high-level goal is ship things that maximize the likelihood that enterprise continues to sign up and be retained, right?
Correct.
And so what we have talked about so far that Veerball will be shipping is we need inside of Recoup, we need Recoup to have tools to be able to modify files so that if I say something like, if I go to my files and I find a text file like this release report, if I want to say edit the release report, first, I'm not even seeing my release report here, so I don't know if it's pulling from files or not.
Yeah, that's something I'm not sure what's going on. Like it only pulls specific files.
Yeah. So let's imagine I was able to tag release report, edit the release report. We'll search the web to find more to find the latest streaming numbers for Halsey's The Great Impersonator. I'm spelling that wrong. 1, edit the release report to add the new data. That should be able to work. Right now, if we send something like that, it'll do the first step. It'll search the web. The edit, it'll say it can't do it, or it'll send us a message, or it'll create a brand new document. So we need to be able to edit. That's one thing. Second, which will get highlighted here, when it searches the web, right now we're just getting completion. So we're just getting the response after it finishes. It searches the web 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we just get that final output. We're not getting the in progress streamed results. So the other thing is we want to stream so that way people don't think, did it hang up? Is it actually giving us a streaming response? And then finally, Virbal is going to work on the Perplexity, has a new API for search. And so he'll work on that. On my side, I have written the initial eval for catalog opportunity. It is very low, most of the time 0, because we don't have any sort of good tooling in place to be able to evaluate a catalog. So Sid and I need to talk about this. My current thinking is going into next week, I'm going to be writing the Supabase queries, building Supabase tables, building out the tools, building out the UI to get this eval from a non-zero stability to as close to 100% as possible. Sid, what is higher priority than me doing this? What else would be a more important thing for me to be working on other than focusing on this specific eval and making the changes that are required to get us at stability at a higher level than revolving around 0 for our catalog opportunity analysis?
Increasing. Oh, it's a great question. Because I'm going back to the other spreadsheet. Because right now you've only added 3 of those. So
Yep.
adding the other P0s on that list that you haven't added, and starting to run those evals as well, so we can, going into next week after this, we can start to increase those. It seems like we need to add the evals and then give it a week to run to have a baseline.
Yep.
So
when you say other sheet, are you talking about the sheet that has more examples of this query, or you're saying the sheet that has
both
other queries that, okay, both of those.
Both of them. Just adding all of that information, all that data, so that.
So getting it from the Excel spreadsheet into evals.
Yeah.
Copy. So I'll do, which do you think is?
I think it's more important.
Getting the evals in is likely more important. That way when I'm making the changes, we see how those changes impact not just this specific eval, but across the board the evals. The more evals we have in place before I make changes, the better full picture we'll be able to see of how did my changes impact, not just if I hyper focus on this, that's great. But if I'm improving this and breaking 4 others, that's a different story. So I'm leaning towards do the Excel evals first, get the Excel into the evals, and then improve this specific eval while not degrading our other evals. Same page. How would you change my current list of priorities if my current list of priorities are get the Excel spreadsheets, both of the Excel spreadsheets into evals, and then work on catalog this eval, improving it? What would be more important, or what ordering would better help you to achieve the business goals than my current ordering of priorities?
Hey, you're back. Am I back?
Oh, it wasn't here. I thought you were just thinking.
No, I got logged out and then logged back in.
Did you hear the question?
No.
Did you hear my ordering of priorities?
No.
Okay.
I've been
my
gone
current
for like
priorities-
1 minute, 30 seconds.
My order of priorities are get the Excel spreadsheet, both of them into evals, and then update the specific catalog eval, make changes in our code base to update the catalog eval while not degrading others. What changes can I make to my ordering of priorities to best support your business goals on retaining and increasing our enterprise customer signups?
That's good. That's it. That's good.
We've got Veerbal, we've got Suites. We're good on the engineering side. On your side, what are your goals going into next week?
Customer calls, continuing to fill out the evals. And then one other thing that I need to talk with you about is I'm going to start to think through connecting the big ass kids. Okay, so I have the big ass kids agent on their for sale website. They're going to start. I have them set up running evals on their own thing, and basically, like, we're going to come back in 2 weeks, and they're going to give me feedback on, like, I asked it to this, and it gave me this response. I would prefer this response. So they're going to manually do evals on their end. In the meantime, their request from my side is, how can we make it so that when you can only access the agent on our website if you're logged in to our Circle community? So I now need to think through a webhook when somebody logs in to their Circle community. Where am I storing that in us, and running it against, how am I storing their community database, like just user management for their their users right now. That is something that I need to start thinking through. And I'm trying to figure out what's the lowest lift for this. Do you have any thoughts or any questions to help you think or make suggestions?
Does Circle have an API that lets you check if they are signed in or to get the auth state of the active session? First question, does Circle have an API and can you find the docs?
Yes.
If you're in the docs, do they have an authentication section?
They have an admin API, auth SDK.
Auth SDK is likely what you're building on.
Headless auth SDK. Server-side apps authenticate your web app with your secure app. Yep. So yes.
You're not sharing screen.
Oh, I just shared the docs. You want to share screen?
I'll share screen.
Okay, so I'm currently using the iframe.
Where's iframe?
Search for it.
Let's see.
There we go. So embed Circle on my website. That's what we're doing.
If you got it in an iframe, communication of information is gonna likely be less. If it's just an iframe, I'm not seeing it in their docs, just here. Settings, yeah, you're doing an embed, and then they likely, if it's not in their docs, what information, the next question that you're going to want to ask is, what information does the iframe communicate to the parent component? And it's likely none if they don't have docs on it. which means you can't, based off of how you're currently implementing with an iframe, there's no way to know if someone is logged in.
But how would they? But then how would they know what to show?
The iframe knows what to show, but your chat code is not inside of their iframe. The iframe knows if they're logged in, but the iframe needs to communicate that to your parent so that you can do things. But if that's not how they have built this iframe, then it is not. Such as session cookies to the parent component. This allows users to be authenticated in both the parent app. So in cookies, solve double authentication. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Sub double authentication in iframes and web views, browser specific policies, use iframe, commonly face the challenge of needing their members to authenticate twice, once in your app, use headless. You can solve this by generating a member token, injecting session cookies into your website so they don't need to authenticate twice. Best way to integrate OAuth. This is likely the docs you're going to want to follow. So it does look like they have built this specific solve double authentication in iframe and Windows.
Woohoo! So, that was a close one, man.
Woo. Yeah, you almost had to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
Injecting in the URL directly. So you get next. So it looks like you'll have them log in on your page. I'm glancing over this right now. It looks like you will have them, before you show anything, have them log in.
No, this helps a ton. Now that I'm thinking through it,
and then you pass the authenticated session into the iframe.
Yeah.
And in that case, you handle it on your side login. They're not going to be logging in through the iframe. They log in first on your site. Your site handles that logged in state and passes that to the iframe. When the iframe loads, it's already loaded with them logged in, and you're not showing the chat unless they've logged in either. And so that handles everything.
Great question. Mm-hmm. This is for future though. I'm going to make it simple at first, but just thinking through like how they're going to, if I'm thinking 3 questions ahead of what the customer is going to ask for, it's going to be 1, what we're doing now, show iframe to, or let only authenticated users use the tool. Version 2, once this starts going, is how do we store information on this user so that the chatbot is more tailored towards that user, which then makes me start to think that Big Ass Kids is a org, which is going to have multiple artists, which is their users. Or like, I'm just trying to think through what does the structure look like when it's like this. But I'm not going to go there yet. I just wanted to, like, at this point, we don't need to even update our database or do anything, right? It's all just client side.
And so far, we have not gotten any requests from them that requires us to change our architecture, which is great. Well, great is an emotional term, which signals that so far we have been building this in a way that accommodates third-party developers like Big Ass Kids to be able to build on top of us without needing architectural changes, which allows us to iterate faster and onboard more customers without doing white glove servicing for each one.
Got it. All right.
So on your side, your top goals are do the customer calls, convert those customer calls into new evals in the Excel spreadsheet, and update the Big Ass Kids third-party dev implementation to only show the chat once they have logged in, which is going to require cookies in the iframe.
Woohoo! Yes, and I swear to God, Sweets, you just saved me 4 fucking days of talking to an LLM.
What else? Anything else we want to cover on this call before we start wrapping it up?
No, that was good, man. I appreciate it.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if there's anything we haven't shipped that you want us to be shipping on Recoup. I got feedback on Instagram that shipping is a weighted term and it's very techy, and I sound like trash when I say it. So I'm going to do my best to start shipping and start using words like delivering or something that's more accurate or something that people don't need to know about in tech. But make sure you try out Recoup. Go to chat.recoupable.com, or if you want to see the new marketing page that Sid delivered or released last week, you can go to just recoupable.com, and we will see you on Monday for our Monday check-in. Thank you for tuning in.